Reagan in the back.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a question for you on Minnesota and then also Venezuela.
Sure.
President Trump threatened invoking the Insurrection Act today in Truth Social post. I'm wondering what his tipping point is. Like, what would it take for him to invoke the Insurrection Act?
Look, that's only a question, frankly, Reagan, the president can answer. But the Insurrection Act is a tool at the president's disposal. As you know, it has been used sparingly, but it has been used by previous presidents in American history. And I think the president's Truth Social post spoke very loud and clear to Democrats across this country, elected officials who are using their platforms to encourage violence against federal law enforcement officers, who are encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct legitimate law enforcement operations. And if you talk to any law enforcement officer, no matter what level they work at, they want to be working with their counterparts, whether that's at the federal level or the federal authorities wanting to work with their counterparts at the state and local level. And it's truly shameful that now for more than a year, you've had elected Democrat governors and mayors who have basically held their state and local law enforcement hostage and told them, you cannot cooperate with federal law enforcement. Why? They cooperated under the Biden administration. It's because these Democrats are deranged in their hatred for President Trump, and they are holding their state and local law enforcement hostage as a result. And these Democrat mayors and governors are doing this over what? Over the lawful and legitimate law enforcement operations to remove violent criminals from the streets of Minnesota, from the streets of California, from the streets of New York, and from the streets of every state across this country. And you don't see these riots and this vandalism taking place in states like Florida. Why? Because you have a governor in that state who has empowered federal and local authorities to work together. And it's despicable what we're seeing from these Democrat politicians, especially in sanctuary states and cities across the country. PBS, go ahead.
You were mentioning a moment ago about working federal, state, local officials in Minneapolis. Governor Walz's office is saying today that he's trying to get a hold directly with the president. Have they spoken? And if they haven't, why haven't they spoken? If there's a desire from Walz, as they're saying, to de-escalate what's happening there.
I'm not sure if that's a genuine offer to speak with the president. I was with the president about 30 minutes ago, and they hadn't spoken at that point. Look, the president is always willing to answer the phone when people pick up and call. When there was another tragic shooting many months ago in Governor Walz's state, he spoke directly with the governor. But I would ask that the governor stops inciting the harassment and illegal obstruction of law enforcement in his state. All ICE and federal law enforcement are trying to do are remove people like this off of the streets of Governor Walz's city in Minneapolis and of his state in Minnesota. If you look at some of the individuals in this photo, these are all illegal alien criminals who came into our country under the previous administration. This is some of the most disturbing crimes you will ever read about. And there's only a few reporters in this room who will actually talk about these individuals. This is all ICE is trying to do. They are trying to remove people like this from Governor Walz's state. And so yes, he should pick up the phone and he should say that he will cooperate with this president and with the federal government in making Minnesota safer, because that's all President Trump and his administration want to do. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions on Minneapolis.
And then you. Go ahead.
Two questions on Minneapolis, one on the ICE agent, the other on the rioting. I believe last night there were protesters or rioters that rifled through an FBI car, took weapons. We had a reporter embedded with ICE who said that she saw constant harassment all evening. Can you speak to the rhetoric we're hearing from Democrat politicians, whether they are causing violence against ICE, as well as some of the headlines we've seen, not including the full story?
Yeah, I mean, to your first point, I think I've addressed that these Democrat governors and mayors in not just Minnesota, but in states across the country are essentially, they've referred to ICE agents who, again, are brave men and women. And I would encourage everyone in this room, and I would encourage Governor Walz and other Democrats who are demeaning law enforcement to sit down and have a cup of coffee with an ICE agent or a Border Patrol agent. These are great, patriotic men and women who have families, who put on the uniform every day and are following our nation's immigration laws at the direction of their bosses and again, at the direction of the law. They are simply trying to enforce the law. And the Democrat Party has demeaned these individuals. They've even referred to them as Nazis and as the Gestapo. And that is absolutely leading to the violence we're seeing in the streets. If you look at some of the images out of Minneapolis last night, look at this vehicle, look at what it says. It says F ICE. You have these individuals who are putting their middle finger, proudly so, at the camera. Another ICE individual, a vehicle that was vandalized last night by these left-wing agitators. People don't do this without encouragement from people in power who make them feel like it's okay. Here's another one. And I'm pretty sure this car, you can't see it, said the best agent is a dead agent, or something to that effect. This is despicable rhetoric that we're seeing, and the media is absolutely complicit in this violence, because if you look at the headline from CNN, protests erupt after federal agent shoots man in Minneapolis, that is not the story, that is not the truth. If you actually want to know the truth, you can look at what the Department of Homeland Security released, which is that this ICE agent was executing a targeted operation against a Venezuelan illegal alien who was unlawfully present in the country. And when this ICE agent tried to detain the individual, 3 more of his comrades came rushing out of a house and started ambushing and attacking the ICE agent. They used a shovel or a broom to smash his face in. And so yes, that agent had to use self-defense and take up his weapon to protect his own life. That is what's happening on the streets of Minneapolis. That's what's happening on the streets, unfortunately, of these Democrat-run cities and states where you have elected officials who are encouraging such violence against our brave men and women in law enforcement.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. First, a follow-up on one of my colleagues who asked you about the president's interview with Reuters. You said that he was joking about canceling the elections, but Americans for generations have fought and died for democracy, for this democracy. Are you saying that the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Andrew, were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard the conversation, and only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question in that way.
And then second,
Philip, go
Caroline,
ahead.
next
Thank you,
question.
Caroline. Senator Elizabeth Warren said that the president called her earlier this week to discuss caps on credit card interest rates. I'm curious, would the president work with her and other Democrats in Congress on a legislative fix to this issue?
I think the president would work in good faith with anyone in Congress for a good legislative fix that would benefit the American people. And that's precisely why he called Senator Warren earlier this week on that matter.
Thanks, Caroline. Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 US citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my
Yeah.
opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack, you're not a reporter, you're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist.